welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really significant piece of the Iranian state, the police command of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah.
You probably know it better as Faraja.
Exactly.
And you're here because you want to get informed, quickly and thoroughly on these complex topics.
And that's what we aim for.
We've got a detailed document here outlining its organization, its history, how it functions. So our mission today is really to pull out the essential insights, give you a solid understanding of this key Iranian law enforcement body.
Yeah, understanding the sort of architecture of a nation's law enforcement, it gives you crucial context, especially when you're trying to analyze internal dynamics or, its relationship with its own citizens.
Right.
Looking closely at Faraja, it lets us see some of the practical mechanisms of governance, how things actually work on the ground in Iran.
Okay, so let's start with some basics, some foundational information. The document gives the official English name, Police Command of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, and the primary Persian name is Farmandahi Entizamiye Yomhuriye Islami Iran. The good news, it's helpfully shortened to Faraja on Czech, which is much easier.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also another Persian name mentioned, Nuriye Entizamiye Yomhuriye Islami Iran, sometimes called Naja. What can we glean from having these different names? Anything significant there?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? You've got the formal long titles and then a widely used short form like Faraja. It sort of suggests an organization that's, it's become part of the common language in Iran.
Okay.
It indicates maybe a level of public recognition, familiarity. The fact there are two formal Persian names, that might point to different historical uses, perhaps, or maybe some nuances in how the organization sees itself or how it's changed over time.
That makes sense. Now, formation date, April 1st, 1991. Seems an odd date, but apparently no joke.
Right.
But it didn't just pop up overnight. It was formed by merging three previous agencies. You had the Sharbani, it's around since 1913.
The city police, basically.
The gendarmerie, even older, from 1910.
The rural force.
And the committee, which came about after the 79 Revolution.
The Islamic Revolution Committee, yeah.
And the actual merger, the consolidation into one force, that happened in early 1992. Why do you think this unification was, such a big deal?
Well, merging these three sort of distinct legacies into one national command, that sounds like a strategic move, doesn't it? Probably to consolidate authority, streamline security, especially in that post-revolutionary period. Each of those groups, the Sharbani, gendarmerie, committees, they all had their own history, their own focus. So bringing them together, that would have been a massive undertaking. Presumably, the aim was a more unified, maybe more efficient security apparatus.
And it's clearly substantial. The numbers reported are around 360,000 employees.
Wow.
And that includes conscripts and reserves, not just career officers, and that gives you a real sense of the scale. What does a number like that tell us?
Well, a force that big, it points to a pretty significant investment by the state in internal order and security, right?
Right.
And the fact it includes conscripts, that suggests a system where national service is integrated into law enforcement. You get a large workforce, maybe, but perhaps parts of it are less experienced.
And here's a really crucial point about its structure. Faraja is under the direct control of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei.
Right.
He's not just head of state, he's commander-in-chief. That's a very direct line of command. What are the implications of that direct link?
Well, that direct control, it really underscores how important the political leadership sees the national police force. It also centralizes authority, which, could mean quicker decisions sometimes.
Sure.
But it also raises questions, isn't it, about accountability, about the potential for political influence in, day-to-day policing.
They even have an official motto. Quite powerful, actually. From the Quran, Surah 5, verse 8, be steadfast witnesses for Allah in equity. That's their slogan. What does putting a religious verse right there as the motto suggest about the organization's identity?
Well, incorporating a religious model like that, it clearly signals the ideological framework Faraja operates within.
Right.
It suggests their duties aren't just seen as, secular law enforcement. It frames it as a kind of religious obligation, and that could shape their self-perception, maybe their approach to maintaining order, all within that context of Islamic values.
Okay, let's step back a bit now. Look at the historical roots, because where it came from really helps understand what it is now.
Absolutely. History is key here.
The Persian gendarmerie, established way back in 1910. First modern highway patrol, rural police force in Persia, paramilitary in nature, and apparently had quite a bit of political influence during the Qajar dynasty and early Pahlavi era. What's striking about it being paramilitary right from the start?
The fact it was paramilitary from day one suggests it was meant to be more than just, civilian police dealing with petty crime.
Hmm.
It likely had a role in asserting state authority, especially in remote areas, maybe putting down unrest. It highlights that close link between policing and state power even back then.
And then there was the Nazmiya,
Mm.
separate force, handled law enforcement inside the cities.
Hmm.
So pretty early on you had this split, urban versus rural policing. Why do you think they had that division?
Well, separating urban and rural makes sense, doesn't it? They face different challenges.
Right.
Cities have higher density, different crime types compared to rural areas. So
Yeah.
having specialized forces allowed them to develop, tailored expertise and strategies.
Right. Okay, moving forward to the era of Mohammad Reza Pahlavi,
Yeah.
after 53, we saw a big expansion of both the Imperial Iranian Gendarmerie and the National Police, which,
Right.
as we said, was also called Sharbani or Nazmiya.
They grew significantly then.
But this period also saw the rise of Sabathak, the secret police.
Notorious, yes.
And interestingly, the document points out there was a real lack of coordination between these different security agencies. What kind of impact would that have had, that lack of coordination?
Oh, that can cause all sorts of problems. Inefficiencies, for one. Duplication of effort, even agencies working against each other sometimes. It creates blind spots, too, where things just fall through the cracks. And a fragmented security setup, it makes it harder to build public trust. It can even lead to abuses if there's no consistent oversight across the board.
And the document notes their public image was one of mystery and fear.
Doesn't exactly inspire confidence, does it?
No. So after the 1979 revolution, big changes. The gendarmerie got renamed the Islamic Republic of Iran Gendarmerie. In 79, it had about 74,000 personnel, placed under the Ministry of Interior, focused on rural areas, small towns. By 86, numbers were around 70,000. What's the significance of being under the Ministry of Interior?
Well, being under the Ministry of Interior, at least on paper, aligns the gendarmerie with the civilian government structure.
Okay.
It could suggest a move away from, say, a direct military or royal connection towards more civilian oversight, though, the actual degree of autonomy might still vary in practice.
The National Police was bigger, about 200,000 in 79, stayed pretty stable. Also under the Ministry of Interior, but they handled cities over 5,000 people. Plus passports, immigration, licensing, a broader remit.
Yeah, that division seems quite clear, doesn't it?
It does.
National Police tackling the complex urban stuff, gendarmerie for the more spread out rural areas, and those extra duties for the National Police passports, IDs. They highlight its role as a key interface between the state and ordinary citizens for everyday things.
The post-revolution time involved a lot of reorganization. Loyal officers appointed in both forces. The document names Colonel Khalil Samimi in the National Police, Colonel Ali Kuchikzadeh in the Gendarmerie as key figures.
Important transition figures, yeah.
But it also points out that by 1987, the growing influence of the SEPA, the IRGC, and the Basij actually started limiting the roles of the traditional police and gendarmerie. Why would these sort of parallel revolutionary forces constrain the established police?
Well, the rise of SEPA and Basij as major security players probably reflected the revolutionary government's priorities, right? Consolidating power, ensuring ideological loyalty. These forces, with their strong revolutionary ties, maybe they were seen as more reliable or better suited for certain security challenges, and that could lead to overlap, or even them taking over roles from the police and gendarmerie.
And then, the big one, 1991. The Gendarmerie, the National Police, and the Islamic Revolution Committees, another post-revolution force, all disbanded, merged together to create the law enforcement force, the Faraja we're talking about today. Seems like a really decisive move.
It really does. That unification, it aimed to create a single, more cohesive national police force out of those separate parts, probably trying to get rid of interagency rivalries, improve coordination, establish a unified command under the new Islamic Republic's authority.
Right. Now, let's look at some key components and functions of Faraja as it is today. One that often grabs international headlines is the Guidance Patrol.
Yes, the morality police.
The document says established in 2005, role being enforcing Islamic dress codes, especially hijab for women. But then, interestingly, it mentions a reported dissolution of the Guidance Patrol in 2022, cites a statement from the Attorney General. That sounds like a potentially huge shift.
It does. The guidance patrol has definitely been prominent, often controversial. A formal dissolution in 2022, yeah, that would signal a notable policy change. Though it's important to question, how much the underlying social norms or the enforcement of them might still be happening through other means.
Exactly, because the document then notes reported incidents involving the Guidance Patrol as recently as August 2024.
Right.
So it seems the reality on the ground might be more complex than just a straightforward disbandment. What does that tell us?
Well, that discrepancy, it highlights the potential gap between official statements and practical realities of policing. It could suggest that maybe the formal structure changed, but the underlying directives, or maybe the same personnel, are still operating similarly. Or perhaps there were later reinstatements or reconfigurations that weren't widely reported initially. It's often herky.
Another key unit mentioned is Police 110, specializes in rapid response in cities, dispersing gatherings seen as dangerous. Basically, urban first responders. How does a unit like this fit in?
A dedicated rapid response unit, that's pretty standard for modern urban policing. It allows for quicker, more efficient responses to emergencies, public order issues, potentially stops things escalating, and being urban specialists means they're likely trained and equipped for those specific dense environments.
And something the document calls a significant development.
Yeah.
Around 40,000 women became police members after the revolution, starting around 2003. That's a substantial number.
Yeah.
What might be the impact of having female officers integrated like that?
Integrating women can bring a lot of benefits. It improves the force's ability to interact with everyone, especially female citizens. It brings different perspectives, different skills, potentially helps address gender-specific crimes more effectively. And 40,000 female officers, that represents a pretty serious commitment to integration, at least numerically.
The document also touches on recent events. An August 2024 order to expel unauthorized Afghan resident immigrants within a year. And concerningly, it mentions reported incidents of police conduct against Afghan individuals around the same time. This really highlights Faraja's role in immigration control, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. It underscores that Faraja plays a major role in managing immigration, enforcing border rules. And those reports of mistreatment, they're serious. They raise important questions about human rights and enforcement activities and how vulnerable groups are treated.
Shifting back to structure and control, we mentioned the direct control by the Supreme Leader. The Minister of Interior handles the legal side. In wartime, authority shifts to the Deputy Chief Commander of the Joint Forces. And again, the Supreme Leader directly appoints top officers. This multi-layered control seems important.
It really illustrates the complex mix of political, administrative, and military authority directing law enforcement in Iran. Ultimate authority with the Supreme Leader shows its strategic importance. Ministry of Interior provides that link to civilian legal frameworks. And the wartime provision, that highlights potential integration with military command when needed.
And down at the provincial level, you have provincial security councils, made up of the Justice Administration Chief and the Provincial Police Chief. They manage security locally. Suggests some localized management.
Yeah, the Provincial Security Council looks like a mechanism for coordinating security regionally. Bringing together judiciary and police heads aims for a more integrated approach within each province, allowing responses tailored to local conditions.
The sheer number of specialized branches within Faraja is quite something. Let's see. Iranian Public Conscription Organization, Prevention Police, Intelligence Organization, Faraja, SAFA, Public Security Police, Traffic Police, Ravar, Cyber Police, Afana.
That has become increasingly important, obviously.
Right. Anti-narcotics police, immigration and passport police, diplomatic police, criminal investigation police, Gahi, what does Gahi mean?
Yeah.
Border police, special unit, including NOPO, the anti-terror guys.
Agahi literally means something like awareness or intelligence. So the awareness police or intelligence police fits their investigative role.
Makes sense. Then economic security police, a university law enforcement force, social affairs deputy, rescue and healthcare deputy. It's a very long list.
It really is. It underscores how multifaceted modern policing is, needing specific expertise for everything from traditional crime to cyber threats, economic crime, and having a university points to a focus on training, professionalizing the force.
The Border Guard organization is mentioned separately. Established in 2000, headed by a brigadier general, focuses on securing Iran's, well, very long borders.
Yeah, given Iran's geography, shared borders with so many countries, a dedicated border guard is critical for national security. Making it separate probably allows for specialized focus on border control, smuggling, illegal crossings, while still working with the main police force.
The special unit, including NOPO, noted for its role in quelling the 2009 election protests.
Right, a significant point.
Responsibilities include riot suppression, anti-terrorism, urban defense, hostage rescue, and reportedly 60,000 members strong. Their role in 2009 really highlights their importance in internal security, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The special unit's involvement then shows it's a key tool for maintaining stability, responding to major civil unrest. 60,000 members, that's a substantial capacity for handling serious threats, internal or external. And NOPO, Anti-Terror Special Force, suggests high-stakes training.
There's also a Center for Strategic Studies within Faraja. That suggests an internal think tank focusing on research, long-term plan.
Yeah, having a strategic study center indicates a desire within the force to analyze security trends more deeply, anticipate challenges, develop evidence-based strategies. It points towards a more proactive, perhaps more sophisticated approach to law enforcement planning.
And finally, under components, government bank is mentioned, connected to the Pleath Pension Fund and the Faraja Cooperation Bonyad. So, financial and welfare structures for personnel.
Right. A dedicated bank, a cooperation foundation that suggests a pretty comprehensive support system for active and retired police and their families. Important for morale, retention, you'd imagine.
Okay, let's turn to leadership. The document gives a timeline of chiefs since 91. Interestingly, many have backgrounds in either the old gendarmerie or, very notably, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC.
That's a key pattern.
The current chief commander, Brigadier General Ahmad Reza Radan, since January 2023, also has an IRGC background. What does this pattern suggest?
Well, the prevalence of leaders with IRGC experience, it points to a close alignment between the law enforcement force and the IRGC, that powerful military branch. It might indicate a preference for leaders experienced in both security and ideological matters. And that could definitely influence the operational culture, the priorities of Faraja.
And something happened in December 2021. The law enforcement force was officially elevated to a general command by the Supreme Leader, renamed the Law Enforcement Command of Islamic Republic of Iran. Seems like a formal upgrade.
Yeah, that upgrade in status, it likely reflects the growing responsibilities, the perceived importance of the national police within Iran's overall security setup. Could also signify strengthening its authority, maybe its direct relationship with the top leadership.
Lastly, equipment. What are they working with? On the weapons side, a mix. Some domestic, some international brands, Heckler & Koch MP5s, Sig Sauer pistols, AK-47s, heavier stuff too, PK machine guns, M79 grenade launchers. Seems equipped for various situations.
The range of weapons, from standard sidearms to heavier gear, indicates a force prepared for a wide spectrum of operations, from routine law enforcement to potentially paramilitary actions. The mix of domestic and foreign weapons probably reflects procurement history and needs.
Their vehicle fleet is also pretty varied. Local cars like the Samand, but also Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Toyota, Renault, even some older models they used to use. That mix probably reflects different needs, different budgets over time.
Absolutely. The variety reflects diverse terrains, different operational demands across Iran, plus different procurement cycles. Seeing the older cars gives a little glimpse into how their logistics have evolved.
Motorcycles, BMW, Honda, and they have aircraft. Fixed wing like Dassault Falcon 20, Hisairon 140, plus various helicopters Bell, Mi-17s. Having aircraft points to significant logistical and surveillance capability.
Indeed. Fixed wing and helicopters give them options for transport, aerial surveillance, maybe other specialized ops. It really underscores how comprehensive this National Law Enforcement Command aims to be.
The document also flags some related topics for further digging. Crime in Iran, the death of Mahsa Amini, military rank insignia, specific legal cases like Zahra Bani Yaqub, Zahra Kazemi. These all connect back to Faraja's work and context.
Yeah, those related topics are crucial for understanding the broader societal political context Faraja operates in. The issues that bring its actions, its authority into the spotlight. Mahsa Amini's death, for example, put intense scrutiny on the guidance patrol's practices.
Right. So to sort of wrap up our deep dive into Faraja, the police command of the Islamic Republic of Iran, we've seen how it came together from those older forces in the early 90s.
Major consolidation.
We've noted its sheer size, that direct link to the supreme leader, its religious motto, We traced its history, looked at key units like the Guidance Patrol, Cyber Police, Special Unit.
Its leadership structure, the IRGC links, the diverse equipment. We've got a sense of its role in internal order, immigration, its complex command structure, mixing political, administrative, military aspects.
The many specialized branches really show the complex job of modern policing, especially in Iran-specific context.
Definitely.
It's clear Faraja is a very significant and multifaceted organization, deeply woven into the Iranian state. So maybe a final thought for you to consider. Given that history, evolving from separate groups into this unified command, directly under the supreme leader, how might that centralized structure influence Faraja's effectiveness on the ground, and maybe its relationship with the Iranian people?
Or thinking about the huge range of jobs, enforcing social codes, managing borders, fighting crime. How does Faraja juggle all those diverse mandates? What tensions might arise from having to do all that? Considering that interplay, history, political control, the sheer breadth of its functions, that really helps give a richer understanding of this key Iranian institution.